Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of AV Educates AV Tech Talks. I want to thank you for being here so much with us on the AV Tech Talks panel and on Facebook and everywhere else that you're watching us. So let's go into some of these house rules. We go live to Facebook every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. You can get notifications by when we go live by following the AV Educate page on Facebook, and while you're at it, join the AV Educate group. We'll drop the link in the comments. If you want to join the Zoom room by texting 407-504-7690. Again, that number is 407-504-7690. This number is only used for our panelists, and you won't receive any spam texts from this number, but you will receive weekly invites to the Zoom room. We're opening the rooms at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, and we close the doors at 6:55. But keep in mind, panelists have to participate and have to keep their cameras on during the talk. Moving forward, due to the nature of streaming, there's a bit of a delay between when we say in our Zoom room and when it hits Facebook. So when making comments or asking questions, please provide some context. The user interface becomes more sleek, and this will lead to more meaningful engagement. Now, be the sharpshooter in the room. No questions are too basic. AV Educate's mission is to help through knowledge. People move from stagehand to technician. Chances are that others have the same questions you do, so please ask away. At the same time, we welcome comments and input on the topic at hand. So don't hold back that great topic or that correction when one of us says something inaccurate. Now, we don't know everything. We are human. We don't claim to know everything. We may discuss or show the way we do something, and that doesn't mean it's the only way, but it's the way we found that works for one of us. If you have another way that's easier or yields better results, please share that with everybody. The whole session is a live Q&A. Our questions will be discussed, the topics for about an hour, and then we'll move to more about a round table discussion. There's no formal Q&A section. Again, the whole session is a live Q&A, so don't wait until the end to ask your questions or to make your comments. And finally, a shameless plug. Please follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram so we can grow bigger and collaborate with even more amazing people just like you. That's all I got, guys. Back to the main room, back to Zoom, and back to you all in Facebook land. Again, thank you for being here, thank you for watching, and thanks for sharing.
Welcome back to AV Tech Talks. Thanks for joining us. We are here tonight. It's February 15th. We're going to be talking today about Companion, Bitfocus Companion, and Yamaha Consoles. So before we get started, I guess anybody in the panel here, I know it's somewhat of a small panel tonight. Anybody know how many ways or some ways that Yamaha consoles can be controlled? Anybody done any control of Yamaha consoles? I know, Justin, you happen to have some consoles.
Yeah, just some. Yeah, obviously the standard studio manager, and just starting to play with exploring the Python options they've added, which is pretty much scene change, but very eager to learn about doing it with Companion as well.
Great. So yeah, you've used Stage Mix. How about the sorry, you said the studio manager, right? Not, and then the
I misspoke. I'm
editor.
showing my age. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're bringing me back to the older consoles and older system. Now it's the QL or CL editor, and then there's Stage Mix. Has anybody heard of Monitor Mix? Right. Yep. I rarely use that, but yes. Or what about Provisionaire? Anybody heard of that?
Nope. I've never actually had the experience, but aware of it. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Cool. And how about Companion? I mean, some people are using Companion. I know, Omar, what you use Companion for controlling some of your software and hardware. Is that correct?
Yeah, I use Companion. I wouldn't say too much, but I use it a lot for mostly video side though. So audio, I'm still learning it right now, so that's why I try to be here as much as I can.
Cool. So with that, I think Andrew, why don't you talk to us a little bit about some of the things that that you're doing with Yamaha Control, and give us some of the history, because you've been doing this a long time, I understand.
Yeah, I've been interested in Yamaha programming for a long time. Once I discovered that Yamaha has great control protocols. Mostly they started with MIDI. A lot of stuff was available to be controlled via MIDI. So I started writing some software to do macros and different things like that a long time ago, back in the days of the PM5D and the other older consoles, and ended up finding out that there is a lot of stuff that you can do once you start to understand these protocols. So when I was when the pandemic hit and I started getting back into programming again because I had all this time on my hands, one of the first things I found out about from a friend of mine was about Companion, and I didn't really know what Companion was. Saw that it had to do with the Stream Deck, and then started to join up with the Companion group and realized that there was a small Companion module for controlling Yamaha consoles using a protocol called SCP, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But it wasn't really fleshed out. It only had a few functions. And I thought, well, geez, I know some stuff about Yamaha. If I can just learn how to do some Companion programming, maybe I can add to this and, just give back a little something to the community, because I knew that the way Companion works is all the programmers there are just volunteer programmers. They just happen to be really big enthusiasts of the particular product that they're supporting. So when you get a module that can control Qlab or can control Shure Wireless or can control all these different things, they're all written by people that are just guys like me that are enthusiasts that happen to know a little bit of programming and want to control something with Companion. So I had to learn JavaScript, which is what the main Companion stuff is written in, and then started to write add on to the SCP module, and realized that that seemed to be working well. And then I remembered that there's a lot more functions that can be done other than the SCP module if I expand this to be able to be controlled via MIDI. So I wrote two modules. I first wrote the SCP module and added all the functions I could for that, and then I wrote the MIDI module. And I was going to show. I don't know if I can do this here. I'll try and do I can't do screen sharing. It doesn't really matter. I have a little article that.
You can go right ahead and screen share.
Can I do that now? There? Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, it's no problem. Make sure I've still got it here. Where is advanced? Is that it? Portion of screen? No, I need to get out of this. Yeah, I had something up there and it seems to have disappeared. Oh, there it is. Okay. So let me try one more time here. Just want to share this little picture, and where does it go? Yeah. You know what? I'm not going to waste your time, guys. It's essentially a little. It was a picture of. Can you see
part of your. There.
Oh, okay. So it's in that advanced thing.
That's all right. We can see what you're working with. Okay. We see your desktop, but we can see
Sorry, it. Guys. Anyway, there's two modules. So there's the SCP module and the MIDI module. So the differences are the SCP module is can control the CL, QL, TF, and maybe in the future it'll be able to control the Rivage. It can work at the same time as you're using the CL, QL editor. It doesn't work in an editor-only mode, so it only will work when you're connecting directly to a mixer, and has a limited number of functions. Has decent functions, but doesn't have every possible function. So the MIDI module is a little bit different in that it only supports the CL and QL. It can't work at the same time as the editor, so it's either the editor or the console. You can't run both at the same time, but it does have the ability to control or be programmed with the editor, and it has a lot more functions than just SCP. So how do I get out of the screen share, Ed?
Looks like you're already out of it. You're good.
Okay, good. I just see a 1 and a 2 on my screen. Am I supposed to see that?
Nope, you can just close out of that screen share window.
Got it. There we go. Okay. So that's how that all came about. And I think that it's one of these things where it's important to know that there's the two modules. Plus, I wrote a Allen and Heath module, which was another console I was sort of familiar with. But I think I just kind of want to let people know that tons of these modules, and each one of them is very different than every other. Even the ones that I wrote are very different than each other. So the functions that you have within Companion are based on whatever the programmer decided is available to you. It's the beautiful thing about Companion is it's really a nice open platform to allow you to do anything. So with that, just to get you understanding a little bit more about what this does and how it works, I'm going to enlist the help of my good friend Andy Lipnick, who has the Companion set up and some pictures of his console, and we're going to walk through a couple of things that I built. So Andy, if you wanted to do a little screen share of your setup. So when you're using Companion, I'm going to try and not go over a lot of stuff that was already done in the first seminar about Companion, like how to install it, things like that. Plus, I also did a video with my friend Jay, who goes through a lot of details. So I'm going to try and do some things a little differently with this one. So if you can see now, we're looking at the GUI of the Companion setup. And Andy, if you want to just click on the Instances tab there, you can see that Yamaha-MIDI is in there. And something special about my Yamaha-MIDI module is you get it from my website. It's not part of the main Companion setup. And the reason for that is I do some functions in there that are a little outside the realm of what Companion will normally do. So because it's a little bit different, I have a custom build that's available on my website. But that custom build also includes all the modules that Companion has as well. Okay, so on here we've got a few different modules. He's got the Yamaha-MIDI, he's got a Qlab OSC, and also my SCP module. So going back to the buttons again, we've set up a little configuration here that allows you to I'm always looking for ways to use the Companion module in a sort of it's easy to show you things and say, this is kind of cool, that's kind of cool. But then to think about doing something in real world, I thought I'd set up something like this. So you imagine a scenario where you have 3 microphones or more, 3 wireless microphones, and you need to have a backup microphone. So if one of the microphones is failing on you, you can go ahead and quickly switch over to another microphone. Well, typically you might have a scenario where if a microphone fails, you're going to want to take the actual spare microphone and plug it into the channel that the original failing microphone was in, so that the operator is able to continue to mix the way he was mixing with the channels in the same location, and if he's using multiple scenes, things aren't moving around. He doesn't have to grab that spare channel and try to move it into place while the show is running. Plus, you need to coordinate with things on stage. When is the person plugged it in? Have I muted the channel? When's the microphone getting passed over? So I wrote a little setup here that would help in that scenario, where microphones channel 5, 6, and 7 are, say, wireless microphones, and we have another microphone, just a spare microphone, plugged into channel 32. So to be able to do a quick patch on the fly, I set this up. So Andy, if you click on button number 610, yeah, and just show us what it does here. Actually, let's go to the emulator so we can watch it actually happen. And are we able to spotlight your console as well, Andy? There it is. Okay. Can you zoom in on the console, on the screen? Great. Okay, Andy, I'm going to also ask you if you wouldn't mind just bringing up the patch page. Okay, so it's kind of small, people, but you can see that if you were to press on the emulator, press backup A, first of all, press that button, and then press channel 5 on the emulator, and then press it again. Okay, so we're going to get back to default here. So channel 5 is plugged into Dante input number 5, and you can see how it's highlighted on the screen there. Now, Andy, go ahead and press channel 5 again. And you see how it changes patch to patch 32. So that would be your spare channel. So immediately you go, oh, there's a problem with channel 5, and the operator, the person running the show, or the person on stage, your wireless wrangler, could also have a companion module, and you can just quickly switch back and forth between inputs without having to actually unplug something. And the cool thing is, on the Yamaha, you can choose whether you want it to be whether you want the gain to be from the port or from the channel. I've selected it to be by the channel, because if you had all your wireless set up in such a way that the gain is the same, switching back and forth, you can just switch into that, switch the input, and have that spare channel still come up on the same person's original channel. And now any number of wireless, I'm only showing you 3, but if you had more than 3, you could have just a single wireless backup and switch them in and out very, very easily. So Andy, if you wanted to press that button 610 again on the emulator. Now press channel 7, for example, button 612. And you see now that one also jumped to channel 32. So just a little sample of something you can do. Now, you can't really do this with the SCP module because it doesn't have the ability to change patches, but you can do this with the MIDI module. So that's, yeah, there you go. Just one example of how you can use it. That something that wouldn't be easy to do with the built-in scene system might not be so easy to do in another way. Kind of makes your life a little bit easier. This is why you want to use a Stream Deck for these kinds of things. The other thing that's interesting about this module is it's set up in such a way that I can pull channel names from the console. So Andy, if you were to go to channel, what is channel 8 on your console, just select channel 8 on the console, and then go to the screen that allows you to change the channel name.
Actually, this is a custom layer, so here, if you want to look at
sure.
it, yeah, I think you can do that. Let's do that. There's channel 8.
Yep.
So
select channel 8, and then change the name from ABC to something else.
Okay. E, F, G.
So the nice thing is it pulls the channel names from the console, so your buttons don't have to say button 1 or wireless 1 or something like that. You can actually have them pull as you're changing the names of the channels. So that's sort of one kind of use of this thing. Another thing I wanted to talk about was the idea that it's easy enough to well, actually, let's go inside and have a quick peek at how this button is set up. If you wanted to go out of that emulator, and yeah, you click that one. So you're on channel 5, right? The one that button says channel 5, yeah. So the thing it's doing is doing a patch in input change from channel 5 into patch 32. That's Dante 32, and then it selects that channel so that you can see it on the screen. And then when you turn it off, it puts the patch back to channel 5 again. So when it's not highlighted, and if you scroll up a little bit further. Scroll up a little further, so scroll down, sorry. Then on it brings the name of channel 5 in there with using the feedback. And it also lets you know that when the patch changes to channel 32, it'll highlight that button as red. So simple sort of concept, I guess, but maybe not super easy to understand how it's actually done. With the MIDI module, more so than the SCP module, there are so many possible commands on the Yamaha that it would be really, really difficult to remember what they all do and how they all work. So Andy, if you want to scroll back down again, we're going to show you how the macro function in this module works. So Andy, if you wanted to click on the presets tab at the top right and select Yamaha, select macros. I get you to drag that button into a location on the Stream Deck. So I tried to make it a little bit easier to do the programming. And the idea was that if you had your Stream Deck in front of you, or had it up sitting by the mixer, you can actually operate this and run the Stream Deck and create new commands on the fly without actually having to open up the GUI you can do this right on the Stream Deck, record new functions. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get Andy to press and hold. So we'll go back to the emulator for a second. You need the GUI to get the macro there, but using the emulator, we can see what's going on. So press and hold that button, Andy. And it turns yellow, showing you that you're going to make a toggle function, one that's going to turn something on and off. Now, Andy, go and press a on-off button on your console. There you go. Now go back to the emulator and click that button. Boom. Okay, let's go out of the emulator screen now and click on the macro button. So automatically on its own, it recorded what you just did. Now we just did one thing. You can record a whole number of things, but we recorded the fact that he turned on channel 27. It automatically did the reverse as the key off function. So if you scroll down a little further, you see it shows channel 27 is going to be turned off. Scroll down a little bit there, Andy. Thank you. And then further on, it automatically added the feedback. So these are three steps that you would normally have to do manually. You would normally add the key down function, add the key off function, and then add the feedback. Well, I realized that a lot of these things could be a little bit automated using the macro function. So now, Andy, if you go into your emulator again and click the macro button, and click it once, it turns that channel on, click it again, turns the channel off. And if you go over to the console itself and turn that channel on, the feedback works. So you can see that, you know, if you needed to build something quickly, it's really easy to do. You don't even need to go to the GUI to make those changes. So that's one of the things.
Andy, this only works with your custom build. Is that correct, or does this work on the SCP version?
Well, the SCP does have a macro function. It works a little differently. Okay. This one I built afterwards and kind of improved on the ability, but because of the way this macro works, that's one of the reasons that I can't put this module directly into the main companion, because it does a lot of internal stuff that's a little bit funky. Creating a macro button on the companion on the Stream Deck, or creating your functions this way, is not something that's normally built into Companion. But I thought it was handy because of the fact that you don't need to bring up the GUI to create your functions on the fly as you're building stuff, right?
Definitely handy. Now, can you remind us how someone could find your Companion build?
Oh, yes. Hopefully you'll throw a link up there, but I have a new forum, which I'm just working on. I apologize if it's a bit confusing, but it's my website is remotelypossible.ca, remotely-possible.ca, and the forum is discourse.remotely-possible.ca.
Discourse,
and on there,
not to be confused with Discord, just to be clear about that.
Yeah, Discourse and Discord, two different things. Discourse is a forum, Discord is a chat thing. So on there is a forum, and you just basically register, and it's free. You can download there, and of course you can ask questions, or people are actually contributing now. They're starting to add their own buttons and their own configurations and things. So it's kind of fun.
And just so people are aware, when you go there, you're going to register for the forum. You'll get an email. You'll get approved for the forum, and then when you go back, you'll be able to get to the builds page where you can find the download for the for this companion build. Correct?
That's right. And just so you understand, the companion build is the same companion build that you would get from downloading it from Bitfocus, except it's also got my MIDI module in there. My understanding is Zoom OSC is doing a similar thing where they're doing their own custom build. So that's the way I'm doing it as well. I have a custom build. It still works on Windows, works on Mac, all that sort of stuff. And I try to keep it as updated as possible. But yeah, you have to get it from there if you want the MIDI module. The SCP module is built in, and I may talk about that in a little bit. But the MIDI module, you do have to go to my website to get.
Great, thanks.
No problem. Thank you for asking. So is there any questions so far on how to create these?
We only have one question so far that's coming from Facebook. I guess you're doing such a wonderful job with the demo that
I don't know about that.
And I just wanted to also point out, you know, your website shows that you are going to present on the 14th of December, but obviously anyone who's clicking that link could just go back in our video archives and check that out if they did miss that. It was a great day for presentation for that. So David Brady is asking, he has an old Yamaha 01 V96 that was donated, and he's wondering if it's still a viable console.
Yeah, Yamaha's stuff lasts a long time. It's great products. If the number of inputs and the functions you need are all there, then of course it'll still work.
Justin nodding his head too. Did you want to add anything, Justin?
I was just going to agree. They have a long life. And the ON V96s are alive and well. There's a big fight over getting VCM activated, and Ed helped me rebuild my museum piece DMP7 that's still running. So yeah, long life cycle.
DMP7, now that takes me back.
Everybody has, I mean, we all got the 5D fleeces. If anybody has the since 1987 polo shirts, that was the 1987 piece.
Right. Well, that was the great thing about Yamaha. They started with MIDI right from the get-go, and they've been really rock solid with supporting MIDI throughout all their consoles, right up to the CL and QL. So where were we? We were talking about the how to do this. There's a question in the chat from Kevin Kimmel from Yamaha asking how you actually do the connections. Well, in this case, Companion works by connecting via network connection. Like the Stream Deck plugs into your computer with USB, but the connection to the console or any other device, I think that Companion works with, it's generally done through TCP/IP or UDP. So that means it's going to be a network connection of some sort. So with the Yamaha console, you'd be connecting into the editor port typically, or you can connect it with the QLs. You can connect it to the Dante port. It's a bit more, it's a bit tricky. You have to know how to do it. The easiest way to do things is just use the editor port. So I thought another thing we could do here is just take a look at a sort of a little bit another real world scenario. And again, my friend Andy here is going to show us one of the pages he built. And I'm going to enlist Ed as our stage manager to maybe call some cues, and we'll see how this setup that Andy built, which actually has more than just the MIDI module, it has also some Qlab things in there as well. So, because some people don't know that you can have on a button, you can have many different instances of different things happening all at once, and it doesn't have to be just one device that you can control. You control multiple devices. So, Ed, would you mind helping us with this?
Yeah, sure. So, Andy, I'm gonna call this out. What we're gonna be doing is we're gonna go music full. We're going to duck the music. There's going to be an announcement. We're going to bring the music back up full, and then we're going to do a music fade out. All right. So I'll give you the standby. I'll call it for you, and you'll just execute for me. Okay. You good? All right. So yes, ready. Thanks. Awesome. I just looking for that confirmation. All right. So here we go. Standby. Music full.
Standing by.
Okay. Music full. Go. Okay, standby music duck, standby announce, standby music full. Music duck go, announce go.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to AV Tech Talks Battle of the Bands.
And music full go. Standby for music fade go. Great job.
I realized I should have used the emulator for that, which I will do when we talk about this. So let me get that ready. There we go. That's the page we were just dealing with.
That's okay. I think we got the gist of it.
Yeah.
So Andy's going to talk a little bit about these the buttons and how he created them. One of the things I thought was kind of interesting was that he used a what looks like a graphic, but it's actually text on the pictures. There's a notes picture. And anyway, Andy, why don't you go through that a little bit of that first?
Sure. Yeah. The thing he's talking about with the G clef here, or is it a C clef? Anyway, I'm showing my ignorance about music. Let me stop sharing, and then I'll be able to show you where you can grab that. I'm on a Mac, by the way. I'm just a MacBook Pro here. Let me do this. Let me screen share again so that you can see my full desktop here. Let me pull this over here so you don't have to look at that business. Okay, so there's my full, I don't you see probably Qlab right at the moment, but let me go back into here. Oops. Bear with me for a second. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Oh, that's why. Okay, there we go. Let me go back into here. Okay, I'm just going to go to this blank thing here. This is this blank button. So up here on a Mac, if you're not familiar with it, show emojis and symbols. There's also show keyboard. So you show emojis and symbols. There we go. You guys can see that all fine. What I did is I went in here and I went, I don't want to write like Q1 on there on this button. I want like a symbol. I think sometimes that's a useful thing. So I just put in music on the search field, and sure enough, there's this. Now if I double click, it will, here I'll move this out of the way.
You'd have to add a new button first.
Button in there. Yep, let me do that first. There we go. There's
click
the
in there.
field. I'll try this one more time. There we go. And if I hit return, there it is.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool because I thought you had to do images and pictures and things. You'd have to use PNGs or actual bitmaps. But turns out that if you can find an image, there it is. There's the way to do it.
Yep. And then so one other thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to switch to there's the emulator. This mic sounds a lot better, I think, even though I've got two mics on here.
That is much better.
I'll turn the other one.
Oh, you're completely off now.
No.
You've muted yourself.
That's interesting.
It's okay. Leave them both on.
Yeah, I'll fix
it
later. Anyway, so let's go back to here. Or I'll just talk about this for a second. My goal with this was that there's a lot you can do with Companion. You can stack cues to your heart's content, macros. You can have one button fire 10 things, and that might be good in theater, or in maybe in a house of worship, where you're doing the same show every week. The world that I live in, and I think Ed does too, and some of the other folks that might be listening to this, is that we may not have a lot of advanced information on our show. We may walk in. We might even do a rehearsal, and half an hour before that, they hand us a new show rundown, and it's completely different than what we rehearsed. So you don't want to be stuck having to reprogram your show before it. So my whole use cases are all about putting a set of tools in front of me where I can run and gun. And this is maybe a very simple example of that. It's just a simple firing of a music cue, fading the cue, announce mic. This might even be something you give to your stage manager. There's lots of uses for this. But the idea behind it is that you don't want to be hamstrung by you've rehearsed something and you're used to doing it, and there's one button that does way too many things that you can physically do. So the idea is to strip that down in such a way where you put stuff in front of you with a Stream Deck and your console. If you have two Stream Decks, whatever you need, you can hit a bunch of buttons on the fly in case things change. That's the bottom line. And then here, let's go look at this. You want to?
Yeah, let's have a look at this.
Should we just look at that? Okay.
Yeah.
So here, we'll look at the first button. There it is. 13 and 14 is the Qlab faders. They're both ganged together, so you only have to do it to one, since whatever I do to 13 will do it in the console, in the Yamaha QL. It'll do it to 14. There's the Qlab start. It's just a start cue.
So again, you can add, and if you have instances of other devices and you want them all to happen on one button, you can add, when you hit add key down, you can choose from any of those instances any function you want and have as many as you want. And they can also be delayed. You know, there's a delay time between them if you decide you want to do that. We'll show you a little bit later how the delay works.
And then here's the off functions, and you'll see there's some colors in here in the feedback as well for this particular button here, this first cue.
Yeah, the feedback in this case is the color of the button is depending on whether it's muted, down 10 dB, or down at 0 dB. So if you noticed when we were running that cue, as the fader was moving, it also highlighted on the companion. And this is also a little bit unique to my modules, that a lot of modules don't have the feedback function. Most do, but there's lots of them that don't have any feedback function, so you don't often get exactly what's happening on the device you're controlling to show you on companion. So that's the nice thing about this one, is it does show you on companion what's going on if you use that feedback function.
Yeah, and then this one is very simple. This cue is just 10 dB down on that, on the Qlab. This just keys on the announcer mic input, which is in happens to be in 23. And by the way, these inputs are the fader position, not a port position, just FYI. And then there's a little bit of feedback on that. It goes green when it's active, like it is now. And then this one. So this one, we could have had the Yamaha console do the fade for us. It would have been probably just having it transition between two scenes. I find that personally cumbersome. So this one button here, what it's doing is several things. Andy will finish up this in a moment, but what it is doing is it is bringing the Qlab to infinity, down to nothing, with nothing else. You see, there's nothing else going on here. And then Andy, if you want to take it from here.
Yeah, we set that so that it would happen after 5 seconds. So after the fade out is complete, then the fader would drop to 0 dB.
Why don't we run that? Should we just run that in?
Yeah, go ahead. Just press that first one.
So
and if you look at the console in the other window there, if you guys could see that, go ahead and press that first button. So it pushes the faders up. Now press the fade button.
And I'm gonna.
It's the minus 10. You see it goes to yellow.
Yeah. And here we go.
And you hit the fade, and as we're waiting for it to fade out in 5 seconds, the faders will drop to completely off. So that's a great way to use the delay function if you just want to make sure that there's no way anybody could play back anything. Now, clearly you could use the on-off buttons as well, but I always like to physically see that faders are down, that I know that something's really off. It's like off, 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 And that's how that works.
Yeah.
So is there any other questions yet?
Yeah, so we got a couple of questions that came in.
Great.
Andrew, I'm horrible with names. Andrew Butenko says, can macros record fader movements or something like gain change, threshold change?
Certainly. Pretty much anything you do on the console can be recorded with the MIDI module. So if we were good to go back and do another macro, I can show you just again how this works for things that you wouldn't expect. Andy, if you wanted to go back to presets there on the top right, the presets tab, come back and click the other one.
Wrong one.
I think you just click on preset. Here you go.
There we go. Sorry, I missed that
one.
There we go.
Macros. All right, drag that in there. Okay, and then go to your emulator again. Can we show the mixer again, Ed? Or is it Andy that shows the mixer? There we go. And can you zoom in on the screen? Okay, so Andy, this time I'm going to get you to press and hold the macro button on the emulator until it turns yellow again. Okay, now go to the console, hit your setup button, and go to console lock. Bottom left.
That button. Down left. There you go. Yep.
Okay, and then go back to your emulator.
I hope I can unlock my console.
You'll be fine. Don't worry. Okay, so then if you go and press that button now, macro 2, and console locks, and then hit it again, Console unlocks. So this is not something you can do within a scene. This is, there's a function there that you wouldn't expect. But so many functions are available. You can change the lighting on the screen. You can change custom layers. You can do pretty much anything you can think of can be done with the macros. And as I'm saying, it's so nice to be able to just press the macro to record it, do whatever you need to do on the mixer, and then just store it. You don't have to try and remember what these commands are. Because if you look at this command, right, it's like, what is this command? Andy, if you were to click on the add key down function and click that and start scrolling, just keep scrolling, keep going, go on and go on. There are thousands and thousands of commands. So for you to remember, what's the command to mute the DCA on channel blah, 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 it's way easier to use the macros to do that. And I thought of the macro thing because I'm used to using things like keyboards, and MIDI stuff always had the learn functions. People see this in DAWs. It's like you hit a button, learn the thing you do the function, and hit play, and it just plays it back for you. So that's something that I thought would make this really, really handy. Is there any other questions before we go on?
Yeah, so I got another one here from Al McAvo. What is the physical connection to the QL1?
Oh, sorry. It is a LAN cable, or like a network connection. So you connect the console to your computer through a network connection if you're using a router or a hub or something like that. And then in your setup, Andy, if you want to click on the edit button beside Yamaha-MIDI, you would select what the console's IP address is in there, and that just has to match whatever the IP address on your mixer is, and it has to be on the same subnet as your computer. So I always recommend to people, first thing you do, get the CL or QL editor working, make sure that connects to the console and that's all working. If that works, then you can go into the companion module, set it here, and make sure it functions. Keep in mind though that with this MIDI module, you can't use the editor and the console at the same time. You can go back and forth. Go back to that instances page again and click on the edit button again. You see there's a thing that says use editor. If you didn't have a console in front of you and you wanted to record some macros or do some preliminary programming, you can check that use editor button and then use the editor on your computer to create some pre-program some things. The difference is that feedback doesn't really work with the editor, but you can still do some of the programming. But it's one or the other. It's either the editor or the console. You don't use them both at the same time.
So Andy, you're telling me that when I'm flying to a gig, if I have some things that I want to pre-program, I could do that on the plane, essentially.
You sure could. Yeah, and don't forget with Companion, you don't even need a Stream Deck connected. You can use the emulator, you can use the GUI, start creating your scenes right there. If you already know what's going to happen and what you want to edit some of your buttons, go for it. And that's the cool thing about Companion is that even if you plugged it into somebody else's QL or CL, the functions will still work. Maybe the channels might need to change, but it's not like using the libraries or the scenes or things like that are already in the mixer. Your own personal setups will work on any of those mixers. And the QL and CL are all use the same commands. So even if it's a QL one day and a CL another day, as long as you're not trying to use channels that are outside what the console has, your buttons will still work. If your button locks the screen, it'll lock the screen on any of those consoles. Any other questions?
Yeah, a few more
Great.
questions for you.
Thank you.
All right, so Kevin Kimmel here in Zoom asks, for the button layout, there's several layers or pages, and he sees that there is an arrow to go to the next or previous layer. Can you double click on the page number and enter a button page number directly?
You sure can.
Do this?
Right
Is
there?
this what he means?
Yeah.
Yep. We'll go to page 6 there where we were.
And that's in the GUI, of course.
Okay.
On the device itself, the physical Stream Deck only has the up-down buttons. It doesn't have a way to enter actual numbers.
That's a pretty amazing tip. Thanks, guys, for sharing that.
Ed just told us about this one during rehearsal. I didn't. I didn't even know. And you
I
know, you
didn't
can
know
change
it.
those page names too. I
Yep.
kind of knew that, but I never bothered. The thing that's just this page, you can actually change that to any name you want.
Okay, and YouTube is pretty quiet with the questions, but I've got one more from Facebook from Daniel Johnson. I think I'm a little better with names than Omar, maybe. Can you can you make fader movements take place over a certain amount of time? For example, channel 1 fader goes from infinity to 0 dB over a 3-second fade time.
Unfortunately, not easily. You can do it with steps, but an actual fade would have to be done by a scene change. Just the way the Yamaha works, it has a fading function, but only if you're changing scenes. So the way you would do that is likely to create two scenes, one that has the initial position, one that has the final position, and switch between them. And possibly using filters or not filters, but recall saves or focus. Focus would be the best way. You just focus on those faders and do a fade time between them. So to answer your question, no, not within Companion. That's not a function that exists. So looking at the GUI, there's a couple of things we can look at here. If you wanted to click on we looked at the emulator earlier. If you click on the web buttons tab there, again, working with Companion, you don't have to necessarily have a Stream Deck, and you can use these other types of screens to use a tablet or something else and be able to control your module that way. And Andy, if you go back to your main admin page tab on the left and click on mobile buttons, that's an even better setup for a tablet. And you can go full screen, you can do things like that. So yeah, super handy. I like the Stream Deck because of the tactile feel. You can sort of feel your way around it without actually looking at it. But the wireless ability of a tablet is really great. So you can imagine this example that I gave of being able to patch in a remote or patch in a backup channel. Your person could be walking around on stage and doing a repatch, using Companion. Or checking channels. There's lots of stuff you can do with stage mix as well. But maybe you just want to have a limited number of functions. You just want to have a few things that a person can access. So you can do it that way. So, is there any more questions at the moment? No.
Yeah, actually, we just had one pop up on YouTube. So thanks for being on YouTube, guys. This is our first time on there. But Joe Callie asked, "Would you run a show off the emulator? Is it an emergency backup way to run a show?"
So would you use the emulator as an emergency backup? Is that what you're asking?
So I'll read it again. Yeah, I was a little confused, but it says, "Would you run a show off the emulator? Is it an emergency backup way to run a show?"
I don't know.
You can absolutely run it off the emulator if you needed to. It is a good idea. It can be a good backup. You can also
if your Stream Deck crashes, I guess. Yeah.
Right, if your Stream Deck crashes, or if you don't have a Stream Deck, you can always bring up the emulator on an iPad. There's also a web buttons interface, which gives you a little quicker access to the other pages.
Yeah, so there's the pages we just looked at a second ago.
Yep. So yes, you absolutely can, if you need to, run it off the emulator. A lot of people are actually doing that. Sometimes I'll have my iPad over here with those buttons all set up. I've actually even had my Stream Deck connected to a different computer running the Stream Deck app, had Companion running on my Mac, and only been using the iPad for the buttons for Companion. So,
and I would argue that there were people running it off the emulator towards the beginning of the pandemic when you could not find a Stream Deck anywhere. Like they were just sold out. So I'd be willing to bet people were running shows off of them until they got their physical Stream Decks back from back order.
So I'll just add to that real quick too. So Randy Reed just asked, is the web application compatible with touchscreen devices? For example, is the button activated by tapping or you must click on it?
It definitely works. Definitely works on mobile, and that's what it's designed for. So yeah, I've used it on my iPad. I've used it on the phone. Between the web buttons and mobile buttons, I'm not sure why there's two of them. One was made earlier. The web buttons was made before the mobile buttons one came up. And you just decide which one works better for you, depending on whether you've got a larger tablet or whether you're just using your phone. One of them will work a little better because you can configure. You go back to the mobile buttons tab for a second. If you look at the settings there, click the settings button at the top. Scroll over up. Other way, scroll the other way.
Hold on a second.
There you go. Click on settings. So within there, you can choose the deck size. So click the deck size and go to MIDI, for example, and then you just you can configure this one a little differently to make it really large buttons if you want, or smaller buttons. Gives you more capability. Plus, it allows you to decide which pages you want to show. So if you were giving this to somebody else to control, you could say, well, I only want you to work on page 1 or page 2. So a lot more configurations and possibilities in that screen. But absolutely, yeah, use it on your tablet, use it on your phone. It's just a web browser, right? So it doesn't matter whether it's iPhone or a Apple product or Android or even a regular Windows touchscreen, whatever it is. As long as it has a browser, it will work.
Hey, I was going to just add one little piece of functionality to this, and it's a simple thing actually, but it's, I think, important. It goes to, so the idea behind this page is, let me get to the right page here, Z announcer. So I made a button that pretend you're doing a show, the announcer's at home, and you've got a nice connection between you and the announcer, and he has an instance of Zoom OSC, and so do you. And you're using a Yamaha console like this. With this one button, you can click it, and it will literally unmute the Zoom and mute it. And both you and the announcer can have that control if you want to give it to them. And the nice thing about that is you get a visual feedback, like you have an announcement coming up. Maybe you're going to introduce your CEO or some actor or whoever it is. You'll see their mic keyed open if you're the operator. It's a nice visual thing. And I actually, let's see, can you see this? You probably, well, if you're looking at this console, I think you might see it. Let's see what happens if I do that. Maybe not. I don't know.
So you got to zoom out a bit.
Yeah, it's actually console. It's not working at the moment. It was working earlier. I think it had to. Oh, I know why. Because I'm hitting the wrong button. Let me do this. There we go. Let me go to the. There it is. Okay, so if I go to the emulator, let me go to the emulator. There we go. There we go. So this button here is what I'm talking about. Sorry, I wasn't really being explicit. So when I hit this button, I don't know if you'll see it here. It should show that mic gets unmuted where you're looking at a picture of the console. Or there it
Go ahead. Yeah, I see it being muted. So that's a Zoom OSC function in there?
That is. And it's tied together with the board, literally bringing up that with your module. And here, I'll just show you really quickly what that looks like. So if you look at here, you've got, I added some other things to it, but there's the announcer mic, number 20, input 23. There's this Zoom OSC string. And if you look at here, I'll just try and see if I can scroll to the end of it. Unmute. And then this is just the toggle of that to mute it back on when I hit the button again. And there's some feedback as well. So that's basically what's going on there.
And Andy, I just wanted to interject from my experience of being behind the scenes before the show started, that you needed to have co-host access, and then naturally your meeting settings for Zoom would have to be to get permission to allow the host to unmute you.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. When I did this, I have two computers here. The meeting, if you're doing this on your own, that meeting needs to have just what Disa said, exactly that. It won't work any other way. And you'll be spinning your wheels like I did for a little while until I realized, oh, wait, I have to do that. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that.
That's cool. That's really neat.
We've got a few more questions for you gentlemen as well, unless you want to move on.
I'll take a question in just a moment. I just wanted to mention one other thing I remembered. If you look at the top right tabs there, there's one called log. If you look at your tabs on the right there, Andy.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
click
that
log.
That log.
Yeah. If you hit clear log there, and if you select info and debug, just click them.
Where's
Yeah,
info
go ahead.
and
No,
deep?
you're beside it. You had it. Your mouse is in the right spot. Just no.
Oh, right. Oh, I'm sorry. It's sort
They're
of
hard
like,
to see, I know.
Yeah, there we go.
And debug. Okay, now if you go over to your console and go and push a fader, just push a fader up and down or something. Boom.
Whoa.
Okay, so in the log, it will show you that things are coming in, like the particular messages that are coming in and the values. That's something specific to my module as well. I'm sure that other modules will do that. Some do, some don't. But there's always, if you're ever trying to troubleshoot a problem and going, well, things don't just seem to be working out, always try to jump to your log and have a look and just make sure you're really receiving the messages you think you are. And when you go and fire a message, it will also tell you that as well. So Andy, if you go and just fire your first fire one of your cues that you have in there, that go to page 11 for a second. You press and hold your shift key and click that top button.
That one there?
Yep. Okay, and then if you go to the far one and do the fade shift. Okay, so if you look at the screen, let's do it another way. Hit the clear log for a second. Okay, let's do this one more time. Hit the first button. Okay, and then hit the fade. Okay, so this is a great little way to tell that things are actually happening. So it tells you the commands that are being sent to the console and what's also being received back from the console. So if you're ever trying to troubleshoot it, it becomes really handy to go, oh yeah, that's a message I wasn't expecting or was expecting. Because remember, when you are using this module, just about everything you do on the console gets sent as a message, changing layers, changing settings, things like that.
Yeah, that by the way, that reminded me of something that you did in the last demo, which I think is really important. It's related to this, which is when you are doing you hold the macro button and you do that. If you start bouncing around the console to get to different features that you need in there, sometimes you just don't need all of those commands in there, and you can go back into that button and clean those things up and get rid of a lot of those things.
Right. If to get to the screen you needed to get to, you might hit a select button or a few things like this, and then you go to your to edit the button itself. You may want to delete some of those things that are not functions that you actually wanted to happen, because it's recording everything you do, including changing layers and things like that. That may be something you want in your button. You may want your button to change layers, or you may not. You just want to have a look at your settings. Just go ahead and click that first button. So you can go in here and delete things that you feel like are not necessary. That's if you're using it as a macro. When you're doing the macro recording, it's going to record everything. So there may be some things you want to take out of there that aren't part of the function that you wanted. Did you say you had some questions? More questions?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Good.
Thank you. So this one's kind of fun because I remember you bringing this up already in December. So welcome, Andrew. If you missed it, you can definitely go back in the video archives and catch that. But Andrew Broughton asks, does it work on Companion Pi?
Work on Companion Pi. Well, not Companion Pi, but it does work on the Raspberry Pi.
Okay.
So Companion Pi is a build that you can get from Bitfocus or from and download from there. But remember, it won't have the MIDI module in there. So there is a build on my website. It's actually not updated at the moment for the Raspberry Pi. So if you have a Raspberry Pi, there will be a build that you can put on there that has the MIDI functions on it. The reason I don't have an updated one at the moment is there's some changes going on within Companion, in that it's difficult at the moment to build a Pi version. So we're still working on that. I think probably in a week or two there'll be a Pi version. So yeah, that's kind of a cool thing, is that even if you just want to hook your Stream Deck to a Pi and hook that to your computer, you can run it without sorry, not computer, Pi, Companion, Stream Deck, and your console without a computer connected. You can actually operate it that way as well.
Very cool. So would you say
we actually did an episode on setting up a Raspberry Pi for Companion. I just posted a link to that in the chat. That was AV Tech Talks 11. And if you want to check out how to set up your Pi for Companion, again, as Andrew just said, that's not going to be his custom build with the MIDI module, but that will get you the SCP modules that are native to Bitfocus's Companion.
That's right.
And Ed just elaborated on the question I was going to expand on. I was going to add to it. This next question is definitely going to test my name spelling, saying capabilities. Tyalek Miguel Lopez Waterman asked on Facebook if it's possible to add functions to control other hardware or programs simultaneously.
Certainly, a button can control multiple instances. Everything you create in every module you put into Companion is called an instance. Andy, if you want to go to the instances page for a sec. Oops. So in here we have 4 different modules, and each module controls a different device or has a different function. The first one is the Yamaha-MIDI one, which we've been talking about. Second one is Qlab. Third one is OSC, which is used with Zoom OSC. And then there's my other module, the other SCP module. So yes, each button can control multiple devices at once, which I think is what the question is asking. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Very thorough as always.
I don't know about that. Any other questions? No?
There is one more, but it's Omar's turn. Is his audio good?
Yeah, sorry. So the last question that I see here is Randy Regis. Can the Companion allow concurrent connections at once?
Concurrent connections. So to what? To multiple devices or the same device? I'm not sure what he means. Maybe
It doesn't specify, Randy. If you can send us another message real quick and elaborate a little bit more, we can better answer this question. I apologize.
I have a feeling he's asking if it can control, as we were just talking about, multiple devices. So what's different about Companion than using the Elgato Stream Deck app, for example, is the Elgato app connects to the computer that it's actually controlling, and it doesn't send network commands to other computers or devices that are controllable. So Companion allows you to do that with devices that are all networked. So I think that's what Randy is asking. So yes, you can use concurrent connections. You can also have multiple controllers all tuned into, as we showed with the web, between the web buttons and the iPads, controlling the same instance of Companion. And as we were just talking about with a Companion Pi, you don't even need it to be on your host computer. It can be on a completely separate little computer, being the Pi, that isn't your show machine, which is a very safer way to do things, so that your show machine isn't also sending out a bunch of network commands while you're trying to operate your show. So I think that's what he was getting at. And if not, Randy, let us know.
Yeah. The other thing, by the way, I got my mic fixed so I can turn the other one off, is that what the demo that we've been doing today, there's 2 Stream Decks connected. I have a 32 button on my desk, and then there's that 15 button that you see taped above the console there. They are on the same computer. And all I need to do is go to different pages if I want separate control, or I go to the same page if I want to see it on both Stream Decks. But I found that I have not used the Stream Deck this way before, where I've taped it on the console. But actually, I think I'm going to start doing that. And I see a lot of value too in having multiple Stream Decks. I might even pick up a 6 button and another 15 button or something. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. We'll see.
So stand by for an AV Tech Talks from Andy Lipnick for the best way and the best tape to use for putting your Stream Deck on your console.
I think it's probably going to be Velcro, but that's another story.
I was just saying, boys and their toys.
Indeed. That's what it's all
So-
about.
So, Andrew, what else do you have lined up that you can show us?
I'm going to go through the SCP module a little bit, but I think the first thing that I just noticed on this instance page that I should mention, you notice there's a little question mark beside each of the modules. So if you were to click on that question mark, it'll bring up a really handy help menu. So if you click on that, it tells you information like how to get hold of the person who made it. It tells you how to use it, how to set it up, how to run it, some simple commands. So whenever you're using a module for the first time, always click that question mark button and try to see if there's some information there that can help you get things rolling. You can close that, Andy. And if you do the same thing on the SCP module, for example, there'll be another sort of a how-to bit of information there on how to use that slightly different module.
It looks like you wrote that back during the DOS era.
Yeah, there's been some changes in how I do things. I think one was written probably a year earlier than the other one. You can close that. So to look at the SCP module and see sort of a little bit more about why that's different, you're going to enable that one and disable the MIDI one so they don't conflict with each other. So yeah, you sometimes have to wait a few seconds for things to synchronize here while he's enabling it. Here we go. So like the MIDI module, it's going to need to have some settings set on it. So if you click the edit button, go ahead and click that edit button there. The IP address, again, we need to set that for what the console is. So hopefully this it lets you do it this time. Things are going fairly slow last time, so we'll see how this goes. I don't know how this will work on the M1. Has anybody tried it on an M1 yet? Does anybody have an M1? Nope.
Oh,
Not yet.
Okay, so let's go back to instances and see if that actually came alive there or not. Okay, we've got the OK. That's a great thing. Nice green OK. So let's go to buttons, and we'll go to a new page that's blank. If we can find one. There we go. So let's click on the very first button here on the left. Okay, go to set button type, a regular button. And on the key down action, let's see if we see Yamaha SCP in there as the list of things. So the MIDI selection is still in there. Scroll down and we're going to see the SCP. There it is. Okay, so SCP is in there, and you probably can't tell from this, but there's a lot less functions in the SCP module than there is in the MIDI module. But a lot of the basic functions are still there: turning channels on and off, turning levels up and down. That sort of stuff. So this module also has a macro function, but it works slightly differently. So I'll show you how that works. You want to just escape out of that screen there and go up to presets on the right. There you go. Hit presets. TF macros. Okay, so let's drag a macro in there. Okay, so if you click on that macro, go to the page. So this one, works a little bit differently. So go on to your console and let's say push a fader up or something. Can we highlight the console? Oh, yeah, have to get Andy to zoom back out again a little bit. There we go. So grab a fader that, okay, you pushed that one up, did you? There you go. Okay, so good. Then go back to the emulator, click on that button there. So, you still got to click and go back to the emulator. Click it again. Okay. So this one I don't think does toggles, and if you click away. Oh yes, this one works differently. I'm sorry. So now go up to the presets. Been a long time. Sorry, guys. Click that. Click that. Now it creates a new macro as a preset, slightly different. So drag that in. Click that and click it now. Great. Now it did the thing. So it moved the fader. So it's not quite as elaborate. It still allows you to do macros, but they're not quite as full features as the MIDI module. But this is good for basic use. You know, if you just needed to turn a channel on and off or turn a fader up and down, the SCP module will work for that. And as I said, it'll work on the TF as well. It's the only one that will work on the TF, but it also works in the CL and QL and uses the same commands.
So, Andrew, just quickly, will this work for something like turning on or off the oscillator, for example?
The MIDI module will, the SCP module will not.
Okay, so that's a big difference, that why people would want to go get your custom build, because you're going to have more control of deeper functions than what you might get with the SCP.
Exactly. Almost every function that's available on the console is available in the MIDI module. SCP is more, faders, on-off channels, things like that. Not a little bit of patching, but not a lot. You can't turn the oscillator on off. You can't lock the screen. You can't. There's a bunch of things you can't do. So I always recommend if you are using a CL or QL, definitely go for the MIDI module. It's going to give you a lot more features. But if you're using a TF or something like that, then this is your option, is to use the SCP module. So these are just two different command strings, essentially. SCP is a new system that was created for the TF and later consoles, and the MIDI is historically been the way Yamahas are controlled in the past. Any new questions at all?
Yeah, so I just got one on Facebook, which we kind of reviewed already, but this one comes from Splinter Mathwood. One way to use this might be to give a director the ability to open and close the talkback mic on the console from their position. Is that correct?
You bet. It's a great way to use companions, to just give limited controls to somebody, as opposed to letting them giving them stage mix or letting them control a whole bunch of things. That's a great way to do that, is to just put the buttons on there that do the things you want them to do, and give them a companion, give them a stream deck and go. I mean, I thought of the idea of in fact, a person I know is using it this way. They set up a stream deck as a talkback system. So they, at front of house, they have a stream deck, and on monitors they have a stream deck, and then the musicians have stream decks. Each one of them is able to pick who they want to talk to. They're all using in-ears, but they can pick the particular person they want to talk to. So what it does is mutes their microphone in the house with one button, and turns on their microphone to a particular person's mix. And then when they push it again or let go of the button, it goes back to the microphone being patched normally and turns off that microphone in the person's ears. So you can imagine that normal talkback system, when you talk to the stage, you talk to everybody. Well, you can now get a lot more control. You can talk to a specific person. And I know people use this for comms as well, being able to go, I just want to talk to the backstage, or I just want to talk to this area. Using Stream Deck for that and doing it through the mixer is now something that's possible, as opposed to doing it through a comm system.
I'm going to go one step further with all that. Is a really great application for this is, let's say you're doing a corporate event and you've got a bunch of different people coming in remotely, and you have a virtual green room. You could set up another layer on the Yamaha console, like you could have 1 through 16 be your show, 17 through 32 be your green room, so to speak, and then you're prepping all the people in the green room. You give a stream deck with very simple controls for someone to talk to those people who are in the green room. They're not part of the general show yet, as a way to talk to them, make sure their mic's good, make sure their lighting and all that. they're not in the show yet. And then that does not need to be an audio operator. That can just be someone who's sort of like an assistant stage manager or a green room producer. You just give them a very simple set of buttons to do that. And then when the green room is ready and they become, it's their turn to speak, the audio op goes, okay, I'm going to start using faders 17 through 32 now. And then faders 1 through 16 become the green room. And you go back and forth with this. And that way the green room operator can tech for the A1 and the rest of the production without ever getting in the way of the production. Great use case.
That's amazing. I set up Companion now for my guitar technician, who can now queue up any channel he wants on using the Stream Deck. He can queue up any channel he wants to listen to backline wise, listen to a single guitar, listen to a single vocal, or anything he needs to listen to on his own through my Yamaha console, but it just affects his mix only. So, and the beautiful thing about that is if he was using monitor mix, it wouldn't give you the ability to listen to a channel that was switched off. Whereas this system allows you to even queue up and listen to channels that are turned off. So if you want to tune a guitar, for example, and it's not going through the house, it's not turned on in the monitors, he can queue it up and listen to it directly. So there's some interesting things that you can do when you start thinking about possibilities of really, really in-depth control of stuff that you just isn't necessarily capable within the built-in functions, but you can definitely do with Companion and a module like this. Any further questions so far?
Yeah, there is. Let me see.
I just wanted to say that Splinter Mathwood from YouTube gave a really good comment about your example. He really likes how thorough you were. So great job.
That's great. Yeah, please let me. I'm sort of running out of ideas. If there's anybody wants to chime in and say, "Can you show me this?" or "Tell me more about this other thing," please do, because my demo is kind of over now. Don't all speak at once.
Great. So, sorry, I'm going to go to Jason Glass's question from here in the webinar on
Jason.
Zoom.
Hey, Jason.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Once you've set up all your buttons and macros, how do you save and recall these setups to today's hardware of the day, or share them with other operators?
Oh, well, it's sort of a two-part question. The saving of your setup is stored on your local computer, but and it'll work with any mixer as long as you set the IP address. It'll work with any of the CL or QL mixers. But if you want to use this on someone else's computer, or if you just want to save it, you'll use the import and export function. So that's a great thing to go through. If you want to click on the top right tab that says import export. So you've got two functions in there, three actually. The reset will just clear everything off. But to save your settings so that you could take them to another computer, you would use the export function. So go ahead and click the export.
Go on. You know what it's doing? It's actually sending those over.
Oh, it just sends them. That's right.
It sends them to the download folder. In fact, I saw a little thing go whoop.
That's right. It doesn't give you any feedback that it's done it, but you've just sent your whole setup of all your buttons, all your setup for that Companion instance. You've now sent that to your downloads folder. So it'll be in there with a date, and it'll be a .companion config file.
And I might add their Firefox for some reason.
Yeah, sometimes that's the default thing, but it's what's called a JSON file. Yeah. They're human readable, but they're complex. They've got a lot of stuff in them. And now if you decided, hey, somebody's got a cool setup, I would like to bring that into my Companion setup. I don't want to delete what I've got, but I'd like to bring in what they have. You can click on the import button there. And if you find one of the ones, did you have a page set up or something?
Let's see. I did. That's right.
You had a downloads folder, maybe.
Let's see if I put it in there. I have to go. Now I'm showing everybody here what's going on.
There's some there.
Downloads right there. There we go.
Okay. So if you go to macro page, for example, companion to config, click on that, click choose.
Bam.
There's a whole page full of MIDI macro buttons if you wanted to make a whole page full of buttons. So let's say we take a blank page, import individual pages. This won't clear all your settings. You don't create a new instance, but just go up one and bring it into your Yamaha MIDI and go to import to page 16. But if that wasn't the right page, just click the page button on the left there to decide which page you want it to go to, and then hit import. And that'll bring that whole thing into your page 17, hopefully. Did you click it?
I thought I did. There we go.
There we go.
This takes a little time.
So now if you hit your back page on the left side there, you can see that it's will not have cleared out anything from before. It's just adding a new page. That's one way to bring in just a single page from something. You can also import the full configuration. If you click on we won't do this, but we'll just lead you through it. So go up to import export again, click on that tab, go to import, and click on the same one again, macro page, choose. So you can go replace current configuration. So if you do that, that means that all the existing pages are going to go away and all the settings that are in that setup will replace them.
Which reminds me, I have to save my config.
Yeah, always save. So that database is saved on your computer locally, but yeah, obviously do backups. And once you back those up, they're saved, and you can trade them with other people. If somebody finds a cool way to set up their screen and use presets, away you go. Hopefully that answers your question, Jason.
I got another one for you here, Andrew, from Kevin Kimmel. He asked, if you accidentally delete in the connections as instances window, can you undo?
If you delete a connection, you mean if you get rid of it? Yeah, okay, we made one button for the SCP module, so go ahead and delete it. Now, before we add it back in again, we're going to go to the buttons page. And Andy, can you remember what page we threw it on?
I think I do. I can find it. Actually, it's being a little slow.
It's being a little slow today, isn't it?
I'm using Safari for this, and I found that Safari loads up very quickly initially, but sometimes it gets a little dragged down here.
Okay, that's it right there. So the macro one. So click on macro one.
Here, I'll shift click.
No, just click it.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
You see that the actions went away. Interesting. They shouldn't. Click on the first button. Yeah, click on the macro button again. Interesting. Okay. Normally it'll say undefined or something like that. So let's try adding the instance back again and see if we get those actions back again. It's a really good question, Kevin. So yeah, SCP.
It's going to take a bit here to load it in.
I may have been wrong about this. I thought that.
Oh, Houston,
it'll come back in a second.
Yeah.
I thought that when you deleted a module, it would still retain the button settings and they would come back again when you re-enable. So if it doesn't, then that's all the more reason to make sure you do lots of backups.
Okay, there we go. So let me go back to that page too. Oh, I gotta let it catch up here. Okay, I'll do this a little more slowly. There we go. I think it was page there. There we go. Okay.
Yeah, so click on macro now. Okay. Well, I stand corrected. I thought that it would remember that there was a key function there and would come back. So that's a really good point, Kevin.
You know,
make sure you do the backups.
You know, will that work in MIDI? Yamaha-MIDI?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I guess we can get those. We've done the demo, so if it clears out, we don't care. Let's try it with that.
Before we do that, I'm going to save my config.
Sure.
So let me export this.
And it just went to your downloads folder automatically.
Oh yeah, thank you. I'm going to double check, just because I don't want to lose anything we did today. There's my downloads folder. And And that did it at 5:31. Yes, okay, I have that. All right, let's go
Cool.
back to this.
Let's go back to instances. And what we'll do is disable that one. If you enable this one without deleting it, let's see what happens. I think all your functions will come back again.
Got to let it catch up here.
While we're waiting for that, we're just getting close to about a little less than a half hour left on today's episode. Just if you have any questions, let's get them in. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, use the comment section for your questions or your comments. And if you're here on the Zoom webinar, you can use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. If you want to join the webinar, I'll post that link in the chat in both places. And we'll get that for you so that you can get a little closer to the action. Our webinar, thanks to continued support from the DVD store, is at 1080p. So if you've never seen a 1080p webinar as an attendee, it is a marvelous thing. So I recommend you come join us and check it out.
It is really amazing.
And it looks like we're back up and running. So go ahead.
Sure. Go to your instances again. Now hit disable on the Yamaha-MIDI one. Maybe this is what I was thinking of. Sorry, I didn't really have my ducks in an order here, but now go back to buttons. Once it finishes disabling there. Now click on that first button there. And no, it still shows up. Interesting. Okay, so let's try deleting it and see what happens.
There we go.
Now go to buttons. Hit the first one. Okay, it completely goes away.
It left the Qlab queue in there, but
yeah, because it still exists.
Exactly.
So let's go back to instances again, and let's add back the Yamaha. This is unusual. I didn't think it. I thought it would remember, even if you deleted them. So I guess that's a good thing. Don't delete your modules. Andy, I'm sorry I made you delete all your modules.
That's what's so great about the demo experience. We break it, figure out how to fix it, right?
Well, you can't fix it if you didn't break it. Curses. And I guess it's trying or not.
There we go. Let me put the right address
IP.
in. I don't remember doing this on the other one. Was that the problem? Did it ask for the console address on the SSD?
It'll remember it. It should remember
okay.
it. So now go to instances again. Or sorry, go to buttons. For instance, I don't care. Which one? We got to see whether it actually turned up or not. So instances, yeah.
Okay. There we go.
It says okay. Go to config. Go to buttons now.
Wait. No, it's not.
Oh, did it not show up?
It didn't show up yet. Let me go here. Let me apply. Let me hit. I've
hit the apply.
Yeah, I thought I did, but maybe I didn't. It's
real-time troubleshooting.
Yeah,
that's right.
I wonder if I restart it. Oh, there it goes. It just applied changes.
Yeah, it didn't really fire up though. So I would just don't go there. Don't go there.
Okay.
Hit disable and hit enable again.
Okay.
Now hit. Wait for it. Wait for it.
Wait for it.
Wait for it. It'll change to enable in a second. There you go.
I find this part's faster on Chrome, but I think, on than on Safari. But
yeah, we're so used to everything being instantaneous.
Yeah. Also, I'm on an old.
There you go.
I should tell everybody I'm also on an old computer here. So
now go to buttons. Let's see what happens now. Did we get back our things or not?
No, we didn't.
We did not. Okay. So let's import your last config then.
All right, here we can show people how that works. Okay, so we're going to go to import, and we're going to do a full import here.
Yeah, you have a saved one there, right? In your downloads.
It's in the downloads folder, not in. Oh, actually, no, it is in this folder. Give me a second here.
You just got to go up one.
Yeah, I know. There we go. And let's see, date modified. There it is. It's got to be that one. Yes. Choose. And we're going to replace current configuration.
Yes.
It's going to blow this thing up. Let's see what happens.
So take a second to do its thing.
How do we know when it's done?
I don't know. If you click on a button, you'll probably see it come up if it's ready.
Oh, yes. I'm clicking. It's not doing anything. Oh, yeah. And it just reloaded on my Stream Deck. They all just flashed. Let's see if Safari can catch up here. It's still not. This is still not going, but I do see it on my Stream Deck. Here, there's one way to find out. Let me try this. Let's see. Oh, wait. It's doing something. It's thinking.
Got a lot of dead air, guys.
Yeah, we're gonna make you watch water boil here.
Well, so while this is thinking here, real quick, I got another one from Splinter Mathwood again on YouTube.
Right.
So he says, when I got the Stream Deck, I remember reading that it shouldn't be used through a hub. Have you found that to be true? Question mark. Especially with all these instances with lots of Stream Decks.
I haven't had that problem, but to be honest, I don't know that I've tried it with a hub. I think hubs are one of those things that if they have their own power supply, they work a lot better than they do if they're just powered off the USB port, depending on what each thing draws. So I think your mileage could vary depending on what the quality of the hub and whether it's powered or not.
Yeah, and I'll second that as with you, Andrew. I've run sometimes 2 Stream Deck XLs to run vMix, and I don't have any problems with that at all. And that goes through a hub, USB-C to a hub to run both of them. Zero
Now,
problems.
Omar, is that an active hub that has a separate power supply, or is that just bus powered right from the?
Just bus powered right from the computer to what I'm running.
I just ordered a active hub just for that reason, and now I feel like I was cheated because I was under the same impression that it needed to be an active hub.
I will say the machine that it runs off though is not a laptop. It's a very expensive machine with a very big motherboard and tons of hard drive. So it's definitely on the upper level. It's not just a laptop running vMix, but it has multiple ins and outs, and I spent a lot of money on it. So so little things like this shouldn't have been an issue. That was the reason we spent the money on it.
Right.
And the hub was part of the purchase.
I will say this, that both the Stream Decks I'm using currently right here on this show are plugged into hubs of one flavor or another. One is powered with actually a wall wart, and the other one is plugged in. It's like one of those ones where it has Ethernet port and 3 USB-A ports.
Great, cool,
Gotcha.
Good to know.
So there's the undefined thing I was thinking of earlier. And so let's go to instances and see why that is.
Can I guess that it's the IP address of the console?
No, it's just that the MIDI is not enabled.
That's why. Duh.
So if you have a module in there, but you don't enable it, you'll get this undefined syntax. So once he clicks enable, we should pop back to life again, but it's going to take a second for it to enable.
And by the way, when I hit enable, the feedback colors that we had in the buttons
came back to
turned
life.
back on. They
Great.
came to life.
Go hit the
this should
buttons
now
there.
work.
You
And
should
so
have
we'll
it.
click on one of these.
And you see the undefined thing's gone away. So
Yeah,
that's
great.
what I was thinking of. So if you disable the module, you'll see undefined. But if you delete it, it looks like the actual functions go away. So best to not do that.
Do you want me to do that one more
No,
time?
we saw it. Takes
Okay.
too long for it to go back.
Sure. Okay. Fair enough.
But that was a great question. What else can I show you guys?
Well, there's some conversation going on Facebook.
Oh, really?
Yeah, people are asking questions and replying with answers to the questions.
Maybe
and
they are.
adding more questions. So
See, that's what this is what the community is all about. Right?
Exactly.
I don't have all the answers.
it's a lot
They
of
do.
text. I was going to try and assign it to Ed because
I see that. So
Maybe I can
let's see.
highlight something that somebody's talking about.
So Aram Pellegrin had said to Andy's earlier point, to the point about green rooms, you don't even need a separate set of faders. Just have the companion buttons assign the channels to a mix, including the pre or post status to take people in and out of the green room or show mix buses. Great way to make and break audio connections between different virtual presenter platforms without dealing with console scene changes. So I think that's what you were alluding to earlier, Andy Lipnick.
Yeah.
That you can do those routing without having to be the person at the console. Take some of the strain off.
I'll tell you right now, I'm a big fan of. You can do it that way, and if I understand their routing, I want to look at their routing scheme a little more closely. But there is a lot of value in doubling up on faders, for example. One trick that's really great is if you, in a club, if you're mixing, if we ever get back into clubs and live music, but is that you have your, let's say you've got a 32 faders in front of you, but you got a 64 channel board. The first 32 faders are your band. Their monitor mix, if you're running monitors from out front, is 33 through 64. So channel 1 is your kick drum, let's say. Channel 33 is your kick drum, but that's only the kick drum that only goes to monitors. And that's not a bad way to run things. Certainly you can do it from the channel, but here's where you run into problems if you do it on the channel. And this is a good use case, by the way, Andy B. But let's say you've got a compressor on the kick drum, for the house, but you don't want the compressor on the monitors, and they're sharing the same console. It's actually a great way to manage that. You will not get in each other's way. You have doubled up your channels, but if you think of it from the standpoint of, I can do anything I want, including change the gain of that channel, as long as I'm not hitting the head amp, if I'm doing digital gain. The drummer who's got the kick drum in his monitors will never hear that change. I can do whatever I want to the house. And I have this complete other channel that's only for monitors. So that's one. The green room thing, I think, could apply to that as well. And I think it's actually safer to have a second set of faders where you're bouncing back and forth, so that I think, frankly, the stuff you have going on under the hood of the console, because there's, these Yamaha consoles are very deep. There's lots of pages and all of that. You could get into a trap where you could make a change to one thing and not realize you're making it to something you didn't intend to. So literally having a second set of faders, I think, is a good way to go. Anyway, just my opinion. But I would love to know more about that other routing scheme. That would be useful.
Totally. Yeah, again, it's one of those things where you realize after you start working with it, you go, wow, there's a lot of things I could do in a better way and faster. This is always the key for me, is how do you get something done quickly when the guy's breathing down your neck saying, I need this now, trying to look at configurations and stuff. If you can get this done on the Stream Deck, or you have some pre-programmed stuff that you use all the time. I have a thing set up on the Stream Deck where I can have, instead of using channel libraries, I have a setup that's a SM58 and a Beta 91 and a wireless mic, a different sort of presets that have a bit of an EQ or a compressor setting or a high pass filter, gain settings, all these settings for a particular channel on the Stream Deck buttons. And you select the channel that you want to adjust. You press this button on the Stream Deck that has a picture of a microphone, and it just sets all the settings on that channel quickly. So as people are moving around, go, oh, I need to add one more wireless. Okay, no problem. Grab that channel, hit the button, boom, you've done it.
And the last thing I'd say about this is that whenever programming a digital audio console, one of the first questions that goes through my mind is, if I'm hit by a bus and someone needs to take over, first of all, I want to make it really obvious for them. And secondly, that goes along with that is, I don't want to build in traps. And I have made mistakes where I've had a trap, like where I did something and didn't realize I did it, and it caused an issue. And so along with all of this, and along with all these use case scenarios and all of that, that's something to think about. If you do something under the hood, you need to be careful that you're not setting a trap for someone else who may need to take over. That's all I'll say about that.
Absolutely. Good advice for sure.
Cool. We have just a couple more items to touch on. Huna Hammond had said, my question is about reliability. I've seen people using this for convenience features. Some of the things you're talking about, which are awesome, by the way, are in the realm of pivotal features, meaning if you set this up and it failed, you would not be able to push buttons fast enough on the console to make it happen again. Was there some discussion of using the screen as a backup? My question is really, how bad has someone burned a showdown with this so far, and what are some backup procedures to reduce that likelihood?
Well, as we see, that some of the things that are a little bit slow are the enabling and disabling. I haven't had an issue once everything's installed and running. Operating the Stream Deck, it's instantaneous. It's really no issues there. It's more in the interface, the GUI interface, where there's possible slowdowns. So the question is whether or not, if Companion had a problem, how fast can you get back up and running again? I don't know, Ed, have you run into that very often there where Companion has crashed on you?
Not really. So one thing that, as I've been playing with Zoom OS C a lot with my Companion, sometimes with Safari, Companion will pop up with that screen we saw from Andy earlier where it says, oops, we've encountered a problem. And then it just reloads and it's back. But that's just the web GUI. That's not actually Companion in the background. So
exactly. The Stream Deck itself comes back very quickly.
Well, in the Stream Deck, when that happens, the Stream Deck didn't even drop in any of those cases. It was just a matter of the web GUI, encountering a hiccup. One other thing I have seen is just where if I put my computer to sleep sometimes, and then I come back, I may have to rescan the USB. So, Andy, if you don't mind, if you could go to the Surfaces page for a second, and you can do that rescan USB button or refresh USB, whatever it says, or rescan, sorry. Yeah. And it'll look for whatever's connected to your computer again. And I've just had to reestablish my connections once in a while when I've, put the computer to sleep and come back to it, and on first fire up, just do that and I'm good to go. So I haven't had too many failures. I mean, I think, Omar, you've had some interesting issues before, I think, right?
I've had a failure, but actually, now that you say the way you guys have just been explaining it, I wouldn't say that the exact failure was in the Stream Deck side. It was more that the program we were running and the Stream Deck didn't communicate properly. And like Andrew had said earlier, a lot of the keys and the buttons, because it was moved from one machine to another, didn't line up correctly, and there wasn't enough time to really change all of those. And it was an Excel, and it was very heavily done with multiple pages. So to go in there and on the fly while we're in rehearsal to change all that just wasn't really an option. So it had to be done, to their point, and they're commenting, it had to be done through the user interface, and it just wasn't fast enough to do it that way. So once after we got done with everything and it kind of failed, and we had time to really sit down and reprogram a lot of things, then afterwards it worked. But the Stream Deck itself didn't fail. It was more of the switching from one machine to another with the folder and the Companion folder and re-embedding it. Just the actual keys themselves, for, the communication part, wasn't the same. So that was the only failure we've had with it that I'm aware of. But I did fail the show because of it. And after the failure, we spent the time at nighttime to redo some stuff and sort of got back on track.
So
go ahead, Justin.
No, I was just going to throw in, this is having just spent my weekend building a Companion Pi. I haven't dug into this. The connection architecture, can you go many to one, i.e. could you have, depending on the architecture, particularly with Yamaha or more broadly, have more than one Companion instance controlling a device simultaneously? I mean, certainly you can have any number of browsers connecting, but can you, hey, Pis are cheap, can you throw a second one up as a hot backup?
You're asking if you can control one Yamaha mixer from two Companion instances? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, because I know there's some Like editors are one to
not at
one.
the same time. No, there's only one editor connection, and that's the connection that the Companion uses. So you can only do one at a time. You could have another one standing by and enable and disable one and then the other.
I don't know if we're more forgiving on the MIDI side or not.
Yeah, not so much. But the SCP module, you could probably run. You could maybe run two of those. I'm not quite sure. I've never tested it. So would that be the best way to back up? I don't know that it would. If you're concerned about Companion crashing. Yeah, I guess I honestly don't know. I haven't really tested it that way. I do know that you can't connect two Companions to one Yamaha console. I know that. And I would imagine many other products work the same way. If you have a single instance of Qlab on your computer, for example, I don't think you can put two Companions running that single instance of Qlab at the same time. It looks to connect to only one of them at a time. So I don't know if that helps or not. But.
I think that's looking at this. I think we're kind of out of questions. It was brought up that there is a Companion remote that lets you have Stream Decks connected to other remote computers on the network. Often a good replacement for a long USB cable or USB hub, or if you want to give someone else control. And there was a link to the GitHub for that. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, I want that.
Yeah, that's going to be the thing I look into next. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, I think we have managed to get through all the questions today. So unless there's anything from our panel, I think Justin, you just did you have any other questions? I think we kept stealing your thunder. I understand.
No, a great audience tonight. Fast as I could come up with something somebody else asked it. So great crowd.
Justin, and of course anybody else who's interested in delving into something that they're like the kind of questions you're asking about redundancy and things like that. If you wanted to reach out to me, please do. At my website or however you'd like to get a hold of me. And if you want to do some tests or something like that, I'd be very curious to find out the results myself. So if anybody figures out something that goes, this works, this doesn't work, it's always great to pass that information on to the rest of the community that's using this stuff.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Andrew. That's we'll make sure we take advantage of that. Oh, you know what I didn't put in today was our Discord link. So I'm gonna have to find that real quick. Because we can always take the conversation over to Discord. If you have more questions, there's a channel specifically set up for all of our AV Tech Talks since we started the Discord. So we can always put questions in there, and Andrew can jump in and answer, and I can try to answer some stuff if we need to. I'm also gonna just mention, because we're getting close to time, we're gonna wrap on time. Omar, did you have anything else too before I?
No.
Wrap up?
I just want to throw out there, I've been trying to get this a better movement of this, and I think today we kind of did a good job. But just Andrew, just some positive feedback from the audience about the show. Jeff Woodward says, sorry I couldn't make the panel, but he's looking forward to the show. Obviously, it was an excellent show today. James Wimsley said, as Companion has absolutely changed our industry for the better. Hakan Nesjan. Here's a list of the preview for the icons you can use. He's shared that in the community for everybody out there. Kim and Kimmel said all of this would be great for corporate AV as well as theme parks. Dan Harlett said this is great. Lots of ideas going through my head. That was on the Zoom side as well. Joe Cali, very cool tools. I was on the YouTube side. David Zuauki, I have used it for this is the way he used it, right? I've used it for lectern mic on mute. I have had an iPad on a lectern with just the tablet surface open. Without page change buttons. That's how he's used it on in his world already. Spencer Wood said, yes, this is a great example on YouTube, and that was the response to the question you'd given. And then that's part of the positive reviews we got. I'm actually kind of glad we were able to get them here, and I'm not writing them down on paper. So
that's awesome. And it's it could have there could be issues, there could be bugs, there could be things like that. It was my first attempt at doing some programming with Companion. So if anybody finds a problem or has a question or wants to see a new function or something, please get in touch with me, because I this kind of stuff interests me. Really really love the idea of controlling things, especially Yamaha consoles.
That's thanks, Andrew. I did want to just before we head out tonight, I want to remind everybody we're here every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S. Next week we are bringing Jeff Widgren back again. He was just with us only a week ago to talk about Zoom, but we left a lot of questions because there was just so much great tips and tricks that were going on that a lot of questions got left unanswered. So we're going to bring him back to answer those questions first. We're going to show some new demos of things that we didn't get to cover that we wanted to. And then we're going to take new questions. So next week, I just posted the link to the event page in the Facebook side, and I'll put it here in our Zoom webinar. You guys can check that out. And if you have questions for Jeff, start thinking of them now and ask him next week. And like I said, we have some other tips, tricks, and demos to show you guys. Omar, can you tell us a little bit about what Bodhi's got going on, even though he's not here with us today?
Yeah, so Bodhi's not here with us today. His oldest is having a birthday today. So if you ever could just give him a wish and that, we'll tell him to watch later on. Happy birthday to him. He's going to be not playing tonight. No pew pew tonight for him on Toxic Biowolf on the Twitch channel. He's going to spend the night with his children. So that's what's going on with him. And then Wednesday, we got Becky Campbell from Sound Girls coming to our podcast side to do that show this Wednesday. So if you guys are interested in that and getting to talk to her and hearing more about their podcast on the Sound Girls side and what they're doing for the community, tune into us on Wednesday night. And I think the last thing we got up is Diesel. You want to wrap us up for the night?
Oh, can I say one more last thing? Sorry.
Of course.
Andy Lipnick, thank you so much for all your hard work and helping putting this together. And Ed, thank you for using up your entire day to help to do rehearsals with me and mess up everything else. So, and thank you everyone at AV Educate for all your help and support. Really appreciate it.
And I just need to also mention
I really have nothing to say, but thank you so much for coming out. And obviously, we were simultaneously live streaming on both YouTube and Facebook for the first time. So really appreciate everyone who came out on both YouTube and Facebook. And as Ed mentioned a few times already, please do sign up for the Zoom webinar if you'd like to get behind the scenes. You definitely get a little bit of a different take in terms of the production and what really goes on. And thank you, gentlemen, for being so open and sharing your knowledge with the community here at AV Educate. See you all next week. Thanks so much. Have a great night.
Great. And anybody who's looking to join office hours, they should be starting up momentarily. Thankfully, we've been able to work with them on scheduling so that nobody was going to miss out on any great content and information. If you need to check out office hours, I've posted links to that as well. Thanks a lot. See you next week.